Welcome you all to our Friday edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. This is our open Q&A session. Our goal during this session is to provide a live forum for veterans, transitioning military spouses, and allies to ask questions while you're trying to learn Salesforce. Any question is fair game. The only thing that we try to avoid is questions that are specific to super badges, as that is a violation of Salesforce's policy. The other thing to keep in mind here is that questions we open it up and anybody can ask any question that they like. Some can be on the easy side of the spectrum, other ones could be on the difficult side of the spectrum. So even if it feels like something is a little bit above your head right now, based on where you are in your journey, that's okay. If you have questions, if you want us to break it down a little bit more, uh, feel free to speak up. We'd be happy to do so. Finally, after our call, I just want to mention that if you are not receiving email reminders for all the Military Trailblazer office hour sessions, you can do so by signing up on mtofficehours.com. You can also follow our page, and I post all the events for this session on our LinkedIn page. And we also have a Slack workspace where if you want to connect with others after the call, you can do so there as well. So with that, I'm going to stop my share. And I will ask that if anybody has any questions, go ahead and use the raise hand icon. I think it's under gestures at the bottom of the screen there. So yeah, let's jump in. Angie, it looks like you have a hand up. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay off camera because the baby will not go to sleep, so it would be distracting. Hopefully she doesn't cry, but if she does, I'll just go off camera and you can move on.
No
And you can,
worries. You're good.
okay, cool. All right, so I'm working with an organization that I have a requirement. I fumbled trying to put a solution in place yesterday for a little while, and I couldn't figure it out. It's probably pretty simple, but I just wanted to get opinions. So can I share my screen, Bill?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
All right. Okay, so this is Sandbox, and the requirement is okay. Let me start this way. On the account, there's a primary exhibit contact, and this is a lookup field to the contact object. There can only be one primary contact, so that's why I did it as a lookup. I did not do it as a checkbox on the contact record. Now, what's clunky about the workflow is that when an account is created, then they have to create a contact, then they have to go back to the account and designate the contact. So there's like so many steps involved with just creating records in Salesforce, and we know that
Yeah.
that's users' favorite is when you make their job harder. So I was hoping to, and we have contacts to multiple accounts turned on. In production, they only see related contacts. They don't see both of these related lists, just FYI, but I have them turned on here. So my hope is in the new contact screen, I wanted to have this checkbox that says set or override the primary exhibit contact so that if a new one comes along, if they need to change this value for, that person left the company or whatever, that they put in the new contact and they check this box and hit save.
Mhm.
And then I tried to create a flow which would update that primary exhibit contact on the account record, but
Mhm.
it's not working and I can't quite figure out why. And I didn't know if
Um,
that was the best approach.
yeah. So I tell you what, before you get into the flow, before we start troubleshooting that, um, let me say back exactly what I heard you trying to say that you're trying to do here. So you have the account object, you have contacts that are related to the account, but on the account, you want to be able to list who the primary contact is for
Yeah,
that account. So the challenge is that you can't link a contact to an account before the account's created. So you're creating the account first, then you're going in, you're creating the contact, uh,
yep,
and at that point, you want to be able to say, while I'm creating you, please also set this as the primary contact on the account. In other words, fill in that lookup field that you have on the account record.
yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
then I went a step further, which I'll just get into now so that, and I wanted to then uncheck that box
Yeah.
after the designation is made on the account object. That way, in case that contact is ever not the primary and then needs to be the primary again, they wouldn't have to check it, save, and then uncheck it and save.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it'd be kind of weird that you would have like four contacts all with that box checked. It would just be
Right.
strange, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before I give my thoughts and then before Angie shows her flow, does anybody have any thoughts before we jump in?
Quick question, is the contact, is it being displayed on the account as well, that primary one, or?
Yeah, it would be listed here.
Okay. My thought was using like an action update record thing and have that kind of displayed on the account record, so then you could actually just do that all while you're on the account. You don't have to do a flow or anything like that.
Yeah, my thought, and I would love to get a show of hands up how many people actually clicked the block button on Angie's screen, thinking it was their own screen. Anyway,
Block things
so
out.
I my first thought was that you would have, if you want to go with that checkbox approach, which I think is a perfectly serviceable approach. My thought was going to be an after record triggered flow on the contact object that would do two things. It would uh, set the lookup field on the account, and then it would uncheck the box as step two. That's
Yep.
kind of what I was thinking.
Now, you just said a record trigger flow on the contact object. Did you mean on the
Yeah.
account object?
No, because you're creating a contact record, and when you
Yeah,
click
okay.
save, that's the record triggered flow that's going to fire is the contact.
Yeah, so I
But-
must have done something in the flow configuration that is just not right.
Yeah. So can we take a look at the flow? If
Yeah.
you're allowed to share that.
Yep.
Is this only an issue when you're creating new accounts?
So it is going to come into play when we're creating new accounts, but existing accounts might change their contact person.
Yeah.
So it needs to be able to work to override the contact that's already in that primary field too. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Cause yeah, it's like otherwise, like this way it will work, but otherwise you could like build a screen flow, which would just
Yeah.
logically take you through, like create the account and contact all like in the one workflow.
Oh,
and
I
connect
did
them all.
think about that, but I think I would still end up with the same.
Yeah, you'd still need like a record triggered flow separate.
Yeah, right.
But it might be a slightly better user experience.
Yeah, like a screen flow. No, that's
Yeah.
definitely something that I want to put in down the road, but I think I would still have this issue where then they would still hit save on all of that and then have to go in and set this contact.
I mean, you could handle all that logic in the screen flow as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, I might try that. Thank you.
All right, let's take a look here. So you have your start element, which is running on the contact object when record is created or updated. And then if you scroll down here, if we look at your conditions, we have when the primary exhibit contact is equal to true. I'm assuming that's the checkbox that you checked,
Yep,
right?
exactly.
Okay, so when that's true, only when it's updated to meet conditions, okay? And then we're doing it in the after context, in other words, the actions and related records. This looks good. So if you can close this, let's take a look at your update element that you have there. So in this case here, we are trying to set the primary contact on the account, and you're trying to update related records. And then if you scroll down here, so you're trying to update the record.account _ R. Okay, now, where the ID. I don't think you need those filter conditions if you're updating the related context. So I think that piece where you have ID is equal to related or record account ID, like that thing, I think you can just set that to none under filter conditions.
But this is an instance that has contact to multiple accounts. So we want to make sure that we're only updating the direct relationship.
Yeah, and that'll be through your like records.account. Or
yeah, I got Steve.
Oh yeah, it's just like either get rid of like the select related records or get rid of the filter. Because yeah, if you go through the account ID, it should be fine.
Wait a minute. So if I did, sorry.
Yeah, then account ID.
Account ID.
And ID.
So
I
think can you just tab here?
Sorry.
Is anybody else liking the new
like that
flow thing here?
Yeah, no, that was what you wanted. And then just tab, hit the tab button.
I'm sorry. I might have to. Should I just type ID?
No, just hit tab.
Tab?
Yeah.
It's not doing anything.
I thought you had to actually click out of that box. So if you click anywhere else on the screen, there you go.
Yeah, okay, that's the same thing, yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So then get rid of this?
Yeah, you don't need it.
And Angie, don't worry about babies. That's perfectly fine. So I think for the filter conditions, you actually just want to change that to none, and that'll get rid of it there.
This would be record ID.
Yeah, there's this new. I got to get used to this new layout that they got here. All right, I think in theory that should do it, right?
Okay, so I think this might have been what I had, except that I did have that filter condition, so maybe that was doing it.
I want to
No,
throw
you-
out, let's see if this does it, but
Okay.
my technical architect showed me something that kind of blew my mind, and that's that when conditions are, only use when conditions is unreliable. We've seen
Mm,
getting rid of it and actually putting an is changed old school works, and sometimes selecting that when changed to meet conditions does not work. It seems to be unreliable. But first I would try this before making that change,
okay,
just to see if this took care of you. And if it doesn't, then look at that.
okay. Should I run debug or should I just do it since we're in sandbox?
Just do it.
I just do it all the time.
Just activate it first though.
Okay, so,
You need to activate the flow, Angie.
oh, thank you. Definitely made that mistake. All right, so should see me balancing a baby on my knee right now as I'm trying to type with one hand. She's really supposed to be sleeping. All right, so I just added a contact and I checked that box. I'm gonna flip over to the details and that's the one that showed up there. So that part is good. Now, can we go through adding removal of the checkbox and then make sure the whole thing works?
Yeah.
All
Do it.
right. So am I just gonna do another record update?
Update. Yeah.
It's so nice when they're at the age where they just like whine a little bit. They don't ask you to take them driving or ask for money or anything like that. It's a good thing.
It's great, Bill. It's great. Okay, so I'm gonna use the contact record that triggered the flow. And
So I
then,
think here you actually want to change it to update records, because then you can do all contact records, which should meet the criteria.
oh,
So like in the case where you might accidentally have 3 contacts where the checkbox is true.
okay. So triggering contact ID. That's
And just scroll up for me.
yeah, that's all the way. These are the lookup.
Oh,
records.
no, yeah, scroll up. I think we just might need a different radio button. Yeah, specify conditions.
Okay.
Do that one, yeah, and then contact. So then here, yeah, you want where that account ID is equal to
Oh, okay, that's where.
the account ID, not the contact ID.
Thank you.
Is equal to the record account ID.
The record account?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Angie, another way to think about this is we're going to be finding all contacts related to this account where that checkbox is equal to true, and we're going to set them all to false. So this is like a juiced up version of, instead of setting it just for the one contact that we're editing, we're just going to do it for all the ones that are on that account, just as like a extra measure of safety.
And then you can add in like an extra condition, extra filter, that checkbox equals true. So then. Yeah.
Stephen, if you don't mind, I'll finish that sentence for you. You put that extra
Okay.
condition there where it's equal to true, just so that you're only updating the ones that are actually true. We're not running this like for all the ones that might even be false.
Yeah,
That are
yeah. So
related
if
to
you
the whole
had
account.
an account with 1,000 contacts related, we're only going to find the 2 or 3. So to just make it more efficient again.
Should have had somebody else go first. Okay, so we're gonna watch it change from test 8 to test 9. And then both test 8 and test 9's checkbox should not, oh my God, so many warnings. All right, yep. So there's test 9. Now let's look at test 9 and see. Okay, yep, the checkbox is gone. So I was really close. I'm not exactly sure. I think it was just that update, that ID thing that I had. Yeah. All right, perfect.
There you go.
Thank you, guys. That was fun. And thank you for your patience and my background noise. She's asleep, of course.
My God, I take 10 babies over, like I said, just the whining that I deal with now with a 12, 14, and 17-year-old.
I
So,
also have an 18-month-old, so that makes this everything really interesting.
all right, cool. Well, does anybody have any follow-up questions for what we just went through there? All right. So I think we can open it back up to questions. Sandy, it looks like you had a hand up. What do you got? Hey, wait, actually, sorry, don't mean to cut you off. Stephen just put something in the chat too. That's a good point. Stephen, you want to kind of speak to that a little bit? Just to
Sure. Yeah. So just saying to add fault path. So whenever you've got like any pink element or any action, like the blue ones, which have the potential to fail in some way, you want to handle the different errors. And so again, it's trying to get treat flows like the code that they are. So Apex needs to have code coverage, so your flows should have code coverage. Actually, like a new option in process automation, so you can prevent flows getting to production if they don't have error handling now. So yeah, it's a
really
few
good
different ways.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
tend to
that'll
use a
help me with something
subflow to
else.
handle.
More because like I'm literally building a screen flow right now and I'm having to build in so many backstops because there's so many validation rules in the org on top of the ones in the flow. So can you give me an example? So like let's say, okay, actually I'll give you an example and tell me how I would deal with it. So like right now I have, we'll call it a contract. The contract can't be over a certain amount. Now I've already validated for that in the fields themselves. So like there's a total cost. And for this contract, the total cost can't be more than this. So I've built that into the screen flow. So as they're adding in these items that it won't do more, but now I'm having to build another flow for when they're updating this. And I'm having to like backstop every time. How would I go about like creating something so if it does mess up, it doesn't just send me all the errors? Does that make sense? Am I saying that right? Anybody?
Are you,
Anybody?
or I have an idea on that. Are you talking about just like if it doesn't have data that it doesn't need, you're just instead of the whole flow dying, you'd rather have it tell you and go back? Or is that what you're saying? Or
Like I miss one of my validation rules, like in my flow. I don't cover it. Like I'm testing for it right now and I'm testing left and right. But like, let's say I miss something and everything else goes through except for like that part. Is there a way to do that? So like the rest of the flow goes through, but not that part. Because what's happening is I'm having to add multiple objects to like the main objects. There's all these related lists or related objects that are getting created to go to this main object. So like, let's say one of them doesn't meet the validation requirements, but I still get the rest of it. Or is that not what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, you can with the fault path, like you can redirect just to the next element anyway. So you can like skip something that breaks. But then like you still need to be aware that it broke, like the element didn't run.
I think you
And
could-
then, yeah, I know there's orgs where like there's no basically new button or edit button
Yeah,
on their records. Everything has to go through a screen flow.
that's how mine is.
Yeah, and because if you do that, then essentially like you shouldn't have object validation rules, or your validation should just be in the screen flow.
So the reason there has to be some in the fields is because there are two. Well, it's one profile. There's one persona that at
Yeah.
any time gets to go in and make updates or corrections based on new information coming in about it. Nobody else gets that. So the sysadmin gets that and they get that. I'm trying to keep them from screwing it up too.
I think if you had a decision after the element that's created that would look for that specific field being there, and if it's not there, then it goes back to that element with a little like, hey, that part needs to be added. I think, is that what you're saying? Something like that?
Well, for example, so they don't actually get to make their own number. They need an auto number. And where's Ryan? Ryan helped me with this earlier. There's Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
So they need an automated number, but this number has to be a certain format. So it's a text format. It's 2 letters, and then it has to be a numerical number, like the last 2 digits of the fiscal year based on a government fiscal calendar. And then on top of that, it has to have a 3-digit following it, padded by zeros. All right. So we were finally trying to implement that, but then I realized that the way we had built it, if she had gone in and edited any of those, the next one coming back would create a duplicate. So then I had to go create a duplicate matching rule on top of that. And so that's what I say, if I like, how can I build that into a fault to where it would just stop it as it's going through? Like if she tried to do that, I don't know. It's just a lot. I have a lot of diagrams right now.
Yeah, so Megan, I wonder if there was a specific example that we could walk through, it might be more helpful. But one thing that a few folks have mentioned, like you can have a fault path that'll, take you to the next step, or you can have a fault path that'll kind of stop your bring you back to the original spot with an error message. Something else to consider too is that when you're connecting these fault paths, you could in theory connect them to a screen, say, here's what happened, and then give them some type of options to say, what do you want to do now? Where it could take them back to, they could have an option for go back one step. You can have an option for just continue going. You can have an option that would take them to a next thing to figure out if it is a duplicate, selecting that record. So then it uses that record for the rest of the processing. So almost like having like the error handling pointing to a screen and then letting them kind of dictate what should happen, as opposed to trying to figure it all out yourself and then tell them what it's going to be.
I just don't want to let them do anything.
But
These are the people
I
that
would-
sent me an Excel spreadsheet of dates with November 31st on it.
There you go.
So for I did it something like that where depending what's important to you, we did something called a before trigger flow, because those validations, the duplicate rules, you set the duplicate rule first, and then you use that as, you have to set it somewhere in a before trigger flow so that it will pop up right away and not let them create another one.
Okay.
And as mentioned in the chat, the other option is just block their accounts. That'll solve all the problems. So Megan, yeah, I don't know if that's I know we threw a lot of ideas at you, but if you had a specific example that we could walk through, that'd be cool. If you want to bring that to the table, maybe next time.
Okay. Bye.
All right, let's see. Any other questions on all that? All right. Let's see, Sandy, what do you got?
I asked it in the Slack channel earlier in the week, if there was a way to share a record with someone and only give them edit access to one field.
When I initially saw that, my initial reaction was no, because you're going to blur the lines between like record access and field level security and all that kind of stuff. But then I started going down the path of, well, how can we over engineer this to actually just make it work, right? And I was thinking like, is there some way that, and again, I don't know the details, maybe you can give us the details about why this is a thing, but like if a person didn't have access to that record at all, they have access to other records, let's just call it accounts, right? They have access to accounts and they can edit their own accounts, do all that stuff, but you want to share them one account, and then you only want them to be able to edit that one field. What I was thinking is, I wonder if you had like a custom share table where through some kind of screen-based flow or some other mechanism, you say, this user should have access to this account to see that one field that you care about, and then give them a screen flow to view it, where the screen flow is running in like system context and it's checking to see if they have that share record there and then displaying that one field where they can change it. I don't know, again, over-engineered, but.
Right. It is opportunity. And essentially what it is a group, like multiple groups of people. So they're trying to create like this alliance sort of thing where people work together, but also still have their own records. So essentially an opportunity belongs to this group, and they have the option to share it with one of the other groups if they would so like to. But the opportunity is still owned by group one. So we have like, trying to remember, because we have different ways of sharing different records, but I think this one's just the check box if they want to share it with this specific one. So we have the sharing rule that says if it's checked with so-and-so, then this group also has access. But because the opportunity itself is still owned by the original one, they're the only ones who should be able to edit anything except for one field, which is named confidential notes. And
Gotcha.
Initially, like all the rules, sharing rules are set up. And most recently, I think somebody else added a validation rule, but they kind of worded it a little bit wrong. So when we were testing stuff out, it was not letting them update that one particular field that we wanted them to. And then so I looked at it, and that's when I realized that I'm like, actually, right now, one, they're not gonna be able to edit that field, but they can edit every other field.
Yeah.
Which is the exact opposite of what you want. But even rewriting that rule so that they can edit that one, I'm like, the one little bug with that validation rule is if they edit that field along with any other field, they'll be able to make the edit. So right
Yeah, so
now, so it's like technically it works if they're not clever.
Yeah. So in other words, you need a validation rule that would basically say like, if they edited that field, it's okay. But basically every other field that they tried to change it,
Right.
would throw an
And
error message.
right. And to try to include every single field on an opportunity is just not practical. So, but again, it's like right now we don't think that it's overall a huge issue because again, it's only if that record is shared with other people that they would even have access to in the first place. So we don't know how often that really happens because, you know, salespeople are salespeople. But right now they can't edit anything on the record except that field. But if they try to edit that field along with another field, both would get changed. And I don't know how likely that is to happen. So what we did was we did add a couple of like important fields like status and a few other ones. So if those ones get changed, it would throw an error record. But
Then you're constantly adding any field that you add to the record.
right. So I feel like there's got to be a simpler way to do it, but also, I mean, I guess it kind of works, but it's not
I don't know
ideal.
about simpler. I could probably do it more complicated using a custom error message instead of a validation rule.
Let's talk about that, Ryan. What do you mean by a custom error message?
So they introduced a couple releases back the custom error message, which is basically a custom made validation rule that you can stick in your triggered flows.
Yeah, we don't have it
And
flow, so we haven't created a flow because
this would be a triggered flow that just runs when that record's updated, like any other triggered flow. And then there's a new element called custom error, I believe is what it's called, or error message. It basically lets you do what you could do in Apex, but you can do it in Flow now. And it pops up on the screen when your person's on the details page, just editing a record. It pops up just like a validation rule. You can have it pop up at the top or at the field, just like in a validation rule. And but you get the power of variables, and you get the power of doing a get records to check to see. And I don't know if it'll work. That's why I said in the chat, I think I found my weekend project. I haven't tried to do it, get records on a share, but you may be able to go find the share record. It requires a bunch of over engineering, which I love, but you would want to share it through an Apex sharing rule so that you could give a sharing reason, a specific sharing reason that you could query for in your flow. And if it was shared because of reason X, then and any field was changed except for the field that you're allowing, you can then pop up the custom error message.
So
I'm just thinking about that. I haven't tried to build it yet, but I believe I could.
Right. Yeah. The one question I basically have is basically the all other fields. Like, is there a way to kind of specify all other fields without literally listing them all out?
Well,
you're in the flow. You can.
Yeah. So I think that's the key piece. And Ryan, let me say this back just to make sure I understand this. So in one world, where you were using just straight up validation rules to say, if any of these fields have changed, throw the validation rule. You would literally have to, like, in that goofy context of like that little text box, you have to put all the fields in there and put this big text blob. What you're suggesting is if you created a record triggered flow, you have a decision element that says just every field. It's like an or in there, and it's every field listed out is changed true, like every one that you can
Mhm.
list there. And then if any of those were true, it changed, then it would send them to the custom error. The main benefit that you're getting is that yes, you still have to list out all the other fields that have changed, but you get a nice flow UI where you're just selecting fields and it's very clean, as opposed to like a big text blob, which you just never know. It's much uglier, put it that way. So, I mean, that it's still ugly, but it might give you a way to eat in a more easy way, put all those is changed in there.
I don't know enough about formulas to know if this is possible, but you can't do a not certain field inside an is changed.
You can.
You
But
can.
the whole point is I don't want to literally list every single field on the opportunity. Like
No, but I was
that's
saying,
what
because you said the one field is allowed to be changed, right? So you'd want the validation to come up when it's not that field that is changed.
Right.
That's all.
However, if we don't list every other single field, if they edit that field and another field, they will be able to make both edits.
So if that field is changed and another field, not that field, is changed. That's what I was trying to figure out if
Right.
there was some way to just play with that, but
Me too.
yeah, yeah,
Me too.
good times. Wow. Yeah, weekend project.
Yeah. So I think if we distill that down a little bit and if you break this up into like the sharing piece of it, if we kind of take that part aside, if we're just looking for a way to throw an error if somebody were to change any field except for one, I don't know if there's any other option besides listing of every other field in the validation rule, or to Ryan's point, the flow where you're listing every field and then throw them to an error if one of those fields is changed.
Just so you know, there are 162 fields on the opportunity in this org, so that's why it's not really practical.
Now, okay, you could, again, I mean, you would still have to list every one of them out, but to put a little order to the thing, you could in theory have decision elements where, you have like A to F and, G to whatever, and basically break them up alphabetically. That way it's a little bit easier to maintain over time. I could see that, but yeah, 162, that's a lot of fields. I mean, I'm assuming some of those are audit fields like the created date, last modified date, system mod stamps. So yeah, might get you closer to like 155. That's well. I don't know if even if I was going to do this in Apex, I wonder if there's a way to do that without listing all the other fields out.
It'd be really nice just to be able to have a record is changed except for this field.
I was even thinking, like, I know there's like hash class. No, that wouldn't even do it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's a great way to do this without just going through every field.
The worst
I think
part
in
about it-
Apex you can, yeah.
Well, okay, let me walk it back. In Apex, what I would do,
know
I wouldn't list every field. What I would do is do a describe of the object, get every single field. I would compare each one of them, and then, like you could do it in a loop. In other words, like it would be a couple lines versus putting 150 different field names out. But yeah, I don't think that functionality would exist within Flow right now.
Are these people all the same profile, Sandy?
No.
Okay.
Each group has their own each group has 2 profiles. So one where one of their users has a slightly more access and one has like a standard access.
Another idea I thought of when I saw your post was to make a record type that you but then
Yeah.
that requires changing it for everybody, not just the person you're sharing to.
Yeah, and
You know,
that's the other thing. They're trying to avoid the record type thing too, but yeah, that was also a thought. I also thought that, and I'm not sure if this is possible, with the new release coming up, how you can actually do visibility on tabs. If that would work, that you can,
Give them
whoever
their
you're
own.
sharing, you do like the dynamic fields and read only for everyone except for that field. That was the other thought I have, but that's a future thing to do. It's not a now thing to
Well,
do.
I mean, you could do that now, and basically just put two detail layouts on the same tab and then do visibility filters to hide one or the other. But the only problem with that is that uh, from a security perspective, I think that'll beat the 97% solution, but there's still that 3% where you haven't actually locked down the field. You're just like in the UI layer, you're making it read only. But there might be other ways that they would be able to get around that. And if it's something like, secret squirrel confidential stuff, I don't know if I would trust just the 97%. The
No,
other
it's
thing,
not,
and
but
okay. Well, the other thing I was wondering too, and I never like to answer a question with, well, I have an answer to your problem is, let's pick a different problem. You know what I mean? But I was just wondering, instead of doing it as a field on the opportunity, a lot of times people have like these kind of notes and things like that as a related list where they could take notes on the opportunity, as a separate object as opposed to a field on the opportunity. That could be something. I think that would be a little bit easier to maintain compared to this weird, one field only type
Yeah.
thing.
yeah, I try to do something like that, but at the same time, it's like, you only got so many hours to work on a project. So
Yeah.
it really sucks when you notice a bug that somebody else created but you can't figure out what the solution is yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Again, if it was like a mission critical thing and it was up to me right now and I had to do that comparison of every field, I would probably go towards Apex. But I know that's not a solution. And I
I don't
don't know
have
if there's any unofficial SF, like somebody's already created an invocable action that you can call from the flow, that might be out there already, but I doubt it because it's a very like specific use case that you got there.
yeah.
There's some unofficial SF components that you can use to compare records and see what's changed, I believe. So, you could within your
Mhm.
flow compare the changes and probably identify which fields have changed. It's been a while since I've used them though, so I'm not sure how
Yeah,
usable they are for the situation, but they might be a way to go.
yeah, and I don't want to get, you know, 3 inches under the weeds here, but that the thing I mentioned there where in Apex, there's basically for any object that's in Salesforce, call it opportunity, right? You can call it the scribe method and it'll give you a list of all the field API names. And then essentially you could loop through them and then check values, the current value versus the previous value, and then you could do whatever you got to do. Now, I doubt that unofficial SF has a like a pre-baked solution for your exact problem, but if there was a solution out there that given an like if you can give it an object name, it would return a collection of field names. And then there was another thing out there where based on a field name, you can actually like get that field name from the object. You can combine those two things with a loop and do something similar in a flow. But yeah, I think it might be over clunky
Yeah.
for this. All right. Well, I feel bad that we couldn't solve your problem.
Those are the kind of days you bring here.
Yep. All right. Any other thoughts on this one before we go on? All right. Mickey, what do you got?
All right, cool. So I'm only working Fridays during this internship with the IT team. So I've been tasked with taking all of the custom fields, and I did put this in the Slack. So I'm just going to kind of run through what I'm going to tell my IT person later, and then I would just appreciate some feedback. I promise to be pretty quick. Is that good with you?
No, you're good.
All right, awesome. Holy cow, I didn't know I had all these screens. Give me 1 second. You guys see this?
See your Excel sheet.
All right, perfect. Cool. So the MG edit is going to be, so this is a trip report. We have 586 fields listed inside of here. And I think the main goal here is to cut some of the fat, right? So get rid of some of the fields that we haven't used. So if you look through all of these fields, what I ended up doing is I sorted it based on population, the number that are populated, right? And so, or no, population percentage. So I sorted it by population percentage. And then I went through and figured out which ones are not populated at all. Because even though it's 0% populated, there are some that are still populated because it rounds down, right? So there's not enough of these number of employee fields populated for it to really count. And so what I'm going to let my supervisor know is that I would recommend deleting these ones first, which is, or I'm sorry, the pop 0, right? So these ones have 0 population. These are all the fields that are not populated at all. And that's only 71 fields. And then everything that's less than 0.1%, which is going to be a certain number, it looks like probably 400s, everything that's less than 400 populated. This would be the second batch, which is another 125 that I would recommend deleting.
Right. No, real quick, let's take a quick pause there. So
yeah,
basically, these first two phases that you mentioned, you have one where there's absolutely nothing in the field, and then kind of batch 2 is where there's like a few things that are populating those fields. A couple of things I would consider right from the beginning. You notice your first column that you have there, that field name column, right? There's fields at the top that you have there, like is deleted and master record ID. And then if you look at the bottom, you have a bunch of fields that have that _ C as a suffix at the end of them, right?
yes.
So the ones with the _ C are custom fields. Those are ones that were created within your org. Somebody created them. The ones without that, those are standard Salesforce fields that you're not going to have the ability to actually delete. So that whatever batches that you have those fields in, something to consider is there's going to be kind of two things there. There's one where it's like the ones with _ C, yes, you can delete those if you determine you can do so. The ones without that, you can't delete them, but maybe it's a matter of like hiding them from the layout or removing field level security, whatever it is. So you can't like permanently get rid of them, but you can at least hide them from the view. All right.
Got you.
Yeah, go
go ahead.
No, please.
Yeah, so they probably are already removed from the view, but this is already super helpful. So please continue.
Yeah.
I think you also need to check out for formula fields, because they might appear as not filled in. Just as a flag.
So let me go into this 0 pop. All right, so a lot of these are custom, but these guys are stuck basically because these are, and so they
Standard
would show
fields,
up
yeah.
in a trip. They would show up in a trip report whether they're shown on an object or not, right?
Correct,
Just to verify.
yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, that's good. That's good info. But this is a lot of C's anyway, and I think most of these down here are gonna have those custom.
Well, so Stephen, what you were saying was if you had a formula field, like a text-based formula field that actually had like a value that was in it, it would show up when this report is 0?
I'm not sure. Like I've only used Field Trip once, like well over a year ago. I tend to use like different tools for this. But yeah, I think some of them, like I've been like, oh, that's odd, it seems like it's not filled in, or like the numbers seem way off. Then it's like, oh, it's a formula field, which is actually
All right,
running
so
all the
If you
time.
have access, let's look at one of these in your org.
Yeah.
You don't have to show it to us if it's something we can't see, but
yeah,
go find one. Let's looking at these names. We can probably find one that looks like it's probably a formula field.
and keep in
I have-
mind that this is this call is recorded for quality assurance and training purposes, and we had
Yeah,
like
so don't
40 views on one of our videos. So if you don't want 40 other people to see it,
All right. Cool. I don't know that I even have permissions, to be honest, guys. Like I'm just a sales guy on this in real life, right? IRL for now.
Can you click the go to Object Manager, so edit object.
all right, we are working in prod.
That's the best place to work.
yeah, it's the
And you have
worst.
to do it once that way, right?
Oh, don't blow up
And
my
then,
work today, guys.
And then go to
Day
fields and
one of the
relationship.
internship.
Yeah,
Fields and relationship on the left.
All right, cool.
And then if you can order by the data type column. And then scroll until you find the formula section.
And then, yeah, first one you find, we should just see if it's on your list.
I don't know what I'm looking for. but
you're
I
looking
saw
for
at
the
least
word-
one formula. Yeah,
You're looking for the word formula, and it's
Oh.
alphabetized, so you should be able to find that.
yeah,
can
and you're
go
going
down.
alphabet backwards,
Yeah.
so you're gonna want to go down.
Scroll down.
Oh, continue down. Okay.
Yeah, till you get to the F's.
Facilitator.
That's the only problem with the lazy loading of these pages where you can't just do Control F to get all the way to the bottom.
Yeah, there we go. Got a
Okay.
few.
All right, so grab one of
So
those
any of
formula
these,
fields.
yeah.
Oh, perfect. Formula checkbox. Sweet.
Yeah, so if
So
you were to grab the API name, so that total underscore costs underscore C.
so copy this
I
and
like
then
that.
Control
Yeah,
F it.
copy that.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then
You
search for
got
that
it.
on your spreadsheet. And then just mind the deleting tab that I think it added in there.
Okay, well,
Uh,
that's a good sign.
Go
That
to
means
your
that
with.
they
Yeah, that
Yeah, go
is,
to
yeah,
your
that's
second
filtered
tab,
on
right?
0. Okay.
go to my second tab and check here. And this is with populations. It's not in there. But if we check the main report, there it
Yeah.
is. Sweet.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
False alarm. That's good.
All right,
So
now.
so it was worth checking.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And what I would recommend, Mickey, also just to take this one step further. You looked at that field, and I can't remember what type of field that was, if it was currency or something else. But maybe
Currency.
just maybe just do a spot check at some of the other formula fields you have that are different types. So if you go back to your big list of fields that you had on your next tab over there, in Salesforce, one more browser tab
It,
to the right.
okay. There's
The one,
yeah, sorry.
there you go.
There's a ribbon, zoom ribbon up here that you guys can't see. I
Gotcha.
promise I know which way
There
my
you go.
right is.
All right, so
Okay.
if you look here, you have a bunch of different formula types. These all say checkbox. You might have some that say currency. You might have some that say like date or text or something else. So what I might suggest is just taking a look at one of each type of those and just make sure that there's no gotchas there. In other words, like maybe text-based formulas in field trip show up empty
Yeah.
when they have stuff in them, and maybe dates show up empty when it really does have stuff in them. So
Yeah, I
whatever
think,
type you have, double check.
yeah, so I think I might have been getting like mixed up with your Boolean to your checkbox formulas. Say you had something, like is today first day of financial year? Because I think it shows like falses as unfilled in maybe. And then so
That
if
would
you
make more
have,
sense.
yeah, so you might have, 99.9% of things looking like they're not filled in for a checkbox, but that's actually correct. So it's actually 100% of them are filled in. So just be, I
Yeah.
think that's,
Okay,
yeah,
I see what you're saying. I see exactly what you're saying.
yeah,
that
yeah. I
They
think,
are all filled in because they're part of a formula.
yeah, they're like true or false. But yeah, I think, I know one of the reports I get, it shows you, like how many are true, and then it can look like therefore, like if they're false, that they're not filled in here.
Now, kind of an extension to that, but something else to consider also, Mickey, when you're looking at this, specifically in that second tab, that book with pop tab that you have there. Imagine if you had a field, let's just say that in your org you have 20,000 leads, and you had a field called the most important top 5 leads of all time, right? It's only going to be populated on 5 leads, but it's a very important field that you would not want to delete because it contains important data. So just because the fields don't have a lot of data in them, that doesn't necessarily say that they don't contain good data that you would need to maintain. So I would say that for these specifically, the ones where it has some data, there still needs to be that mark one
Oversight.
eyeball review where you're kind of looking through and just making sure that it is in fact a field that's got nothing important in it.
Yeah,
Got you.
take
There's
a
nothing that we
backup
use.
before you delete it all as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. So something else I would recommend, you can do the deletions in a couple of different phases as well, depending on your level of risk tolerance, right? After doing all the reviews that you want to do in your spreadsheet, you're looking at data, making sure everything is good. You could go to that field and just click delete. That's always an option. Another option you have, and because I'm kind of a hoarder, I would do this. I would probably go in the field, change the field label and the field name to like ZZZ underscore, and then just hide the field, remove field level security from every profile. In a giant org, maybe that's not a bad idea because maybe somebody complains and you're like, oh, okay, so now now I know that we shouldn't have deleted that field, and it might save you some headaches. So in other words, like
How did you
doing
say
kind of like
that?
a
Remove from
yeah,
what's the
so
vocab?
change the labels, and then you can remove all field level security to that field.
Cool.
Not to say that that's an easy thing because these days you have to worry about profiles and permission sets and all the different things. But essentially, removing access to that field from all the different security things that would essentially have the effect of soft deleting it.
Got you. And
All
then
right,
give
so
it a week, see if anybody blows up, and then delete.
But I mean, I would just delete the stuff.
But yeah,
Right. I mean, that's what I've been tasked to do. I'm sure that's the goal, the end
Yeah.
game here. But
Yeah,
I don't
what-
know how to, I'm not there yet. I don't think I'll be doing the deleting, but it's good to have something that I can say to that effect.
Yeah, check with your data retention policies before you remove any data. Because we have a
Okay.
7-year retention policy for legal reasons.
yeah, I think Salesforce is pretty good at preventing you deleting something if the field's used in like a critical place. But I think sometimes it'll miss that. So you can use free tools like Elements Cloud has a free version, Salto has a free version, Happy Soup is free, where you can see everywhere where a particular field is referenced. So to show you if it's in like different reports or page layouts or flows or process builders if you've got something running there.
So as you delete, it'll throw an error. It'll give me the heads up.
For
or
some
whoever.
stuff, but I think some of it, like I don't know if it'll work in Apex. Like if you got a specific field in custom code, and then you delete it, whether Salesforce
Well,
is smart enough to realize that or not.
It is. It's actually a mixed bag
Yeah.
though. So if you reference
Yeah.
the field directly in Apex, it will call that out and say you can't delete it because it's an Apex. But if it was part of like a dynamic SQL query that you're building as a
Yeah.
string and then using in SQL, it won't catch those.
Yeah. You can also use the where used on that field.
Oh yeah, true. Because we're
Okay.
only talking about custom fields, aren't we? Yeah. So where used will do well.
And Mickey, my apologies to stop your sharing, but yeah. So on any of the fields you have that are custom fields in that lead fields of relationships, if you click on that, there should be a button in there that says like, where is this used or something like that, where it'll give you all the different places that it might be referenced.
Awesome. API name created by, modified by, formula options. Okay.
Now we can flip this whole thing on its end and just go whoever's responsible for actually doing something with leads. You just go to them and say, listen, you need to tell me what fields you want me to keep. Otherwise, I'm just deleting them all. And then
That would be
there you go. So
yeah, I think one of the things I want to mention is I would be happy because I work in the sales side. So I'd be happy to go to the different team leads and say, hey, we're thinking of deleting these 50 fields. Any issues with that? Any problems with it? And then see what they say. But
yeah.
I don't know how big that'll go over.
They won't say anything until they realize the importance of what they lost.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I'll say go for it. I'll say you
Because
what?
there'll be some report which you only look at once a year, and then there might be a field which is like a filter in there or something, or a column, or but yeah, they might not think of that.
Yeah, I think Mickey, my other comment that I made in the Slack was, these kind of things too. I mean, it doesn't have to be like an all or nothing thing that you just pull the trigger and you do them all. Like you have here, you broke it up into 2 phases, but you think about this, if how long it's been going on, how long they've been trying to clean this stuff up. I mean, if you set a target that you're going to review, analyze, and they're going to sign off on maybe 10 fields a week, just something that's like you're making constant progress, that if the project gets canceled, you get pulled in another direction, whatever it is, there's still progress that was made and you can, like, it's behind you. And then when the time is available again, you pick it back up, start with the next 10 fields, and you just keep on going, as opposed to trying to get like this boil the ocean approach, or boil the elephant, or whatever the cliche is, right?
Eat the elephant, one bite at a time. All right, cool. I actually have another meeting, but I really appreciate it. You guys have all been very, very helpful. So thank you all so
No
much.
worries. Awesome. Talk to you later. All right. So we have about 50 seconds less left. Does anybody have any other questions or comments on that one before we wrap it up for the week and I head back out to field day? All right, I'm going to start using boil the elephant. I think that's my new thing. So
good to have you back this week, Bill, and good luck at Tough Mudder.
Yeah, same for you. Yours is tomorrow, right?
It is, yeah.
All right, don't make sure they don't do anything in the mud because I'll
I'm
be there
gonna
the next day.
bring my own mud, make it extra bad for you.
All right, well, good luck, and we'll catch up next week. Thanks, everybody.